Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name's Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
Yes, and I'm Jordan, an addict, always trying to make good choices.
And I'm Louis, and my pronouns are he and him, and I am always in search. I'm recovering for crystal meth.
You're always
alcohol,
in search.
And I'm always in search of something. I'm always in search of balance. And each week we strive to foster a brave space so we can engage in conversations centered around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for people in recovery by tackling issues that are sometimes used to separate us.
Yes, but before we do that, please like, share, comment, subscribe, ding that bell.
You know, fumbling is our brand.
I know. It is.
It's we like to be a little.
Fumbling's your brand, at least.
Right.
Hey.
Wow. I'd ask how you're doing, but I don't care.
Well, I don't know. I think we have a good question for Louis.
What's the question?
I think you had a birthday recently, didn't you?
Oh, I did, like a couple weeks ago.
Wait, belly button?
No, by the anniversary, by the time this
Oh, I
time.
knew that.
But let's do the disclaimer. And then
And the disclaimer, the thoughts and opinions expressed on at the CCC are as only we do not represent anyone but ourselves. In other words, we're just a couple of friends behind a mic here to entertain you. And of course, everything we talk about is for general information purposes only. I think I missed the line, but what you celebrated 20 years? 17. 18 years. 17, yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. 17 years.
Yeah,
and all
I
you're
know.
doing is smoking weed.
Actually, no. I do crack on the weekends to cut the drum. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. It was really cool. It's like it's fascinating. Like, I remember the struggle before I came in, like all of the excuses and the drama and whatever. And so to be 17 years in, it's like, wow.
It is, wow.
Yeah, it's a miracle for sure.
It is a miracle. We are miracles.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You say it's a miracle like you knew me from before, bitch. Is there something I
a
don't
girl
know?
can imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We can too.
I was a classy bitch. No.
I'm so sure
I was so in denial. Like I thought I was.
that you thought you were classy.
I was delusional.
Yeah. Jordan, you were saying that this is Social Worker Appreciation Month?
Yeah.
It might have already just passed by this episode, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, I was
March.
talking about right now.
Right.
If you run into Jordan on the street, he wants to have his
Some
toes
appreciation.
rubbed. Yeah, some appreciation.
Yes. But yes, March is Social Work Appreciation Month. And if you know a social worker, work with a social worker, tell them.
I do. I wanna
them
do
you
nice things for
appreciate them.
Jamie. Yeah. That's so cool. Thanks for telling us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we appreciate you.
We do.
Social workers
Absolutely.
are the muscles of mental health. I firmly believe that.
Nice.
Absolutely.
You guys are angels. So today is a continuation of our More Than One Way series where we're talking about different ways of approaching recovery. It must be late. If you've been listening to us for a while, you have probably been able to notice when it's getting late in the night because we start tripping over our words. And whenever we get to this point, I feel like we're on NPR. Like there's like something.
Now you're listening to Fresh Air.
So we're continuing our series on different paths to recovery. And today we're going to be talking about moderation management. Mod. Or MM. Moderation management. So moderation management, if you're curious, it's a peer support program for people who want to reduce their alcohol use rather than, you ready for this? Immediately commit to lifelong abstinence. Right. So some people, but Louis and we were all talking about this before. And Louis is like, well, how is that different from harm reduction? Well, I'll tell you. And maybe it's actually not very different from harm reduction. And we'll see today.
It's a fancier way to say it. No.
Yeah.
It's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest differences is that moderation management it has a system around it where harm reduction, I mean, let's talk about the details later. Okay. So moderation management, one way that it's different from harm reduction is that it is specific to alcohol and alcohol only.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so it's about moderation alcohol use.
Because you can't moderate crystal meth.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Not Jordan over there. Jordan's like, well, can you?
I have never known anybody to microdose crystal meth.
Or like a recreational meth user.
I mean,
I'm sure they exist.
They started in the beginning, but they eventually like.
Yeah. So moderation management, and it's designed primarily for people who have problematic or risky drinking and not necessarily severe alcohol dependence, which is, how do you determine that? Right. So at its core, we'll call it MM. MM challenges the idea that all alcohol problems require abstinence. So it's essentially acknowledging that abstinence may ultimately be necessary for some people, but it's probably not necessary for all people. The core philosophy is built on several key assumptions. For example, people have varied severity around their drinking, so not all people who struggle with alcohol use are the same. Moderation is possible. So some people can learn to drink moderately and safely with structure and awareness. Louis, you were saying before we started recording that you've known people who, they come, they get sober for a little bit, they go out, and then they're fine.
Or at least that's what they tell us.
At least that's what they tell us. Yeah. And research has shown that there are some cases where people can abstain for a certain amount of time and then return to what we'll call responsible use in this, responsible drinking. Honest self-monitoring. So behavior change requires honest self-monitoring and evaluation. And then options matter, right? So this idea that people shouldn't have to feel like they have to abstain, so never drinking again, or not drink forever, or drink forever. So there's a middle ground. And then the last thing I'll say is that their meetings, they're peer-led, discussion-based. They're focused on present behavior rather than personal history. So this is a little like SOS.
They probably happen in a park too. Huh?
Yeah.
So it'll be nice and chill.
So they're structured around sharing strategies, challenges, and data. So data might be collected from like questionnaires or something like that. They're less emotionally intense than many other abstinence-based programs. So like Women for Sobriety, SOS. Women for Sobriety, and 12 Steps in general. They tend to have like more narratives. And discussions often include what limits people set and how they went about them. And then situations where moderation felt hard or they weren't able to, and then reevaluating goals honestly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
It feels similar to like SLA or SA, right? Where you kind of determine your
circles.
Your circle.
Well, you're thinking, sir, we do, and the SLA that I've done is, I think the circles is SA.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, in SLA, we do top line, bottom line.
Why do I always have a taste for coleslaw after you say slaw?
Oh,
Every time I'm on, it's like the 4th of July. I want a hot dog real bad.
Real bad. Jordan, I like that you mentioned the circles, because I think that's probably like a really good way of thinking about it. So if we're thinking about moderation management, it's like it's self-defined.
Yeah.
Right.
So in SA, right? So essentially you define your own circles of like, this is what in the program means, this is what outside the program means. You set your own boundaries in terms of if I do ABC, then I'm outside of my circle in terms of safe, right?
Yeah. And with top and bottom lines, the bottom lines are things that you define with your sponsor. So they're the behaviors when it comes to sex and love addiction. They're the behaviors that you want to stay away from, right? So for some people, maybe apps, hookup apps might be a problem. So you'll put that on the bottom line, and so you stay away from that. And then the top lines are behaviors that you want to engage in. So for some people, it's like, I want to be more focused at work, or I want to learn how to play the piano, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it feels similar vibes.
Yeah, it does feel like similar vibes. So first thoughts, impressions about moderation management when thinking about...
While you were reading, I was thinking it's like the key is, or the assumption is that the person has a drinking problem, but not necessarily an alcoholic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, right? Like it's looser than 12-step, right? Because 12-step at its extreme, not even at its extreme, at its foundation is about, this is a physical allergy. It's an allergy of the body. And, oh my God, what was the second? An obsession of the mind. Yeah. Obsession.
What should be seen as extreme
Right.
when you're new coming in.
Yeah,
Like
and the idea
that.
is to drink is to die, right? So that's the extreme end where moderation management is like, well, chill, hold on,
Chill, daddy.
chill. Oh, it's daddy chill.
Daddy, chill.
But with moderation management, right, it isn't severe cases, which is also interesting because at what point do they define severe? Like, how is that severity defined? Is that also self-defined?
After that last trip to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you have the DTs, then obviously that's pretty severe.
I think that when I first came in, it wasn't my initial intention to do 12-step. When I first got sober, I just wanted, like most people say, I just wanted to get right so I can get back to drinking the way, in a normal way or whatever. And it was eventually over time, after a while, and I realized, I can do this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I can understand why, especially when folks are, because it was initially hard for me to acknowledge that I was an alcoholic. It's weird, I didn't have any problem saying that I was a drug addict. But saying I was an alcoholic, that was defeat.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that also has incorporated into their programming is that if someone has continued failure around honoring their own boundaries around drinking, then that's when they suggest abstinence. Right. So
they do, they will like.
So it's not like no abstinence at all.
But who suggests, since you don't have a sponsor?
Right. I guess it's maybe the group.
You have some person you just met. Hey,
you need to be abstinent. But no, it is interesting, and also I think similar to the other two forms we've talked about, is it doesn't seem to be a hierarchy, or like hierarchy is a main thing that's not in these programs. So I wonder why
there isn't a hierarchy.
Yeah, like why specifically, like no sponsor, no identified like hierarchy.
Yeah, what's interesting is that if you look at the creation of 12-step, I mean, it's a really rich, like even before they wrote out Alcoholics Anonymous, there's this like very rich history. And it's based on there's spiritual texts that it's based on, right? And what's interesting about what you're saying is that if you look at any of those texts that tend to be religious, actually they're religious, they're informed by like ideas of Catholicism or God, right? And in that is inherent a hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so it's I had never thought about that.
I feel like all of these programs that we're talking about are offshoots of the program of 12-step, because you know how 12-step was like an offshoot of the Oxford group.
Yeah.
And they didn't like everything about it. And so they modified and probably realized, you have individuals say, this is not going to work for me. And so they went and they may have taken the frame of 12-step but said, throw this out, throw that out, throw that out. And
yeah, I have a friend who she did her graduate research on AA. She's also in recovery, and she was basically saying the same thing that you're saying, that all recovery. Well, she took it to a little extreme. She was saying all programs are based on Alcoholics Anonymous. Like all recovery programs are based on Alcoholics Anonymous. That they follow the same framework to some degree or another. So who might this be appropriate for? So according to some stuff that I've read, so it's people in early stage problem drinkers. So early stage problem drinkers with mild to moderate concerns. Interesting that we're talking about mild to moderate, because those are terms that we use to diagnose substance abuse disorder. So again, I'm wondering who's defining that.
Is this one also not spiritual based? Like
not a spiritual program either.
But is it? Can it be a part for individuals? Do individuals get to decide if they're driven by spirituality or whatever? Can they still
Yeah, I mean, I think the way they would see it is whatever helps you, achieve that moderation or work toward your goals of reducing your use. Yeah. So no severe physical dependence. So people obviously not people going through withdrawal. Can stop after one or two drinks without rapid escalation. Maybe that's the barometer. Yeah. And then strongly resistant to abstinence only frameworks, but willing to consider it later.
Yeah, no, it's like I think it's if it's readily available and you're someone who has doubts and you're just not, and you just feel some sort of way about, usually it's contempt prior to investigation.
Yeah.
But you feel some sort of way about 12-step, then by all means, it's like if this is what you need, because it may work.
Yeah.
It may very well be that because I think a lot of us have the question, you know, am I really an alcoholic? You know, or am I just making it, you know, a lot? Am I making a big deal about nothing?
Yeah, I mean that kind of thinking like fucked me up a few times because I like when it comes to like, for example, I was thinking, oh well, for a second when I was like, oh, maybe I could return to drinking, right? And my first thought was like, oh, I would lose my whole community.
Oh, yeah,
like I would lose all of my friends. I would lose all of my spaces. But then I was sitting with it for a little longer and I'm like, oh no, actually, I know what my life looks like when I drink or use. And even when I've tried to moderate, right? Like one of the kind of stipulations is like, if your drinking escalates quickly, like after one or two drinks, you're like, oh, I need more. And that was
I just have to say that Anthony's being very intense. He's staring directly into
Well, you're sitting right across from me. Yeah.
We're going to go out for dinner afterwards. I'm all, that's hot. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
Footsies under the
I'm
table.
gonna now look at Jordan.
Thank you. Okay, so my question then is,
what is it?
What is the difference?
I love that.
between-
We all have our things that we say. My question is,
What's the difference between harm reduction
Got it. Harm reduction.
and this right? Like,
So, I mean, first thing is that moderation management is just about alcohol, where harm reduction could be any substance. That's the first thing, right? The second thing I think about is like policy, right? And so harm reduction, as far as I understand it, within like cities, there's
free
like
for all.
It's not a free for all, but
Balls to the wall.
it's right. Like it's obviously about reducing harm, but there's a lot of policy around harm reduction. Yeah, those are my first two thoughts. I'm thinking on the spot, but yeah. I don't know.
my other thought too.
I'm gonna Google this one.
My other thought too is that I think the main goal for harm reduction is to like essentially save your life, right? So a lot of harm reduction is testing your drugs and making sure that they're not laced with something that you don't want to take, right? Or using clean needles, right? It's all part of harm reduction. So it's about doing your drug of choice as safely as possible, right? So that you don't OD or that you don't kill yourself. You know, so I think that to me sounds like a difference in the two for sure.
I think so too. I'm Googling it right now because I'm curious. So harm reduction, broad, non-judgmental approach focused on minimizing negative consequences of any substance use. And then let's go to that's harm reduction. Okay.
I feel like someone who is doing the moderation when all the drama went down, branched off to distance himself.
Yeah, I think I like this specificity here because it's saying like examples of harm reduction and then moderation management. With harm reduction, you would have a health clinic providing free fentanyl test strips or a needle exchange program, right? To the examples you gave. Where moderation management is a person setting a limit of 2 drinks per night, keeping a log and attending a support group to reduce heavy drinking.
So it's very self-driven versus like there's another entity that's helping.
Yeah. So often synonymous. So harm reduction often synonymous with safer use practices, low threshold services, and pragmatism and addiction recovery, where moderation aligns with controlled drinking, harm reduction drinking, and behavioral self-controlling training. Yeah, I don't know that it would. I don't know that it would work for me, especially like in like intense cases. Well, like for example, someone who has like is like going through withdrawal or something like that. Like obviously it's not going to work for them. Yeah. Or I wonder, but I like the question that was asked earlier, like who determines the, like you should be abstinent. Yeah. Who's determining the severity?
Who's the moderator for the moderation?
Yeah. And if it's peer led, that there's something about that being kind of questionable for me around moderation management.
Absolutely, because I think the gift of having a sponsor is building that relationship, learning how to find intimacy and trust with another person. I think that I'm
just
always
to run shit by.
I know, but I'm always
So what?
Run shit by.
Right.
I'm always thinking this thought like my sick mind couldn't heal my sick mind, so I can't be the person to determine, because I'm always, until I do the real work, I'm always going to take the easy way out, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And in some regards, I agree. Other times it feels very defeatist to say, I have no power, right? Which I feel like maybe this moderation program is saying I have some power to moderate myself, right? There's some self-motivating that I can do this versus I can't do anything and I need other people and I need the program to help do it for me.
I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, I don't.
Agree.
Go
When
ahead.
I-
Go ahead.
It's that kind of like when I say I make a decision to say like when I hear people talk about women in relationships who talk about being submissive, but when they talk about what it really means, it is not a weakness to say that I submit. It's you making a decision to submit. That submission doesn't occur. It's just like a bottom in a relationship. A bottom doesn't just has to make a decision to give themselves to that other person or whatever. So that it is not you throwing your hands up and saying, I have no power. It's you exercising your power in a way that, in a certain way.
It's defining power differently, right?
Yeah.
Like we admit powerlessness to regain power. We give up control to regain control. Yeah. But I do hear what you're saying about this kind of like deferring to the group, deferring to something outside of ourselves, right? Yeah. And I think for people who may not have like a sense of spirituality or I don't know, maybe even an appetite for something like that could be very difficult. So I'm curious what you guys think about the meeting format. So the meeting,
it sucks. No.
yeah.
Oh my
So the way their meetings are structured, so like I said earlier, they're peer led and they're discussion based. They're focused on present behavior, so rather than personal history. So maybe not sharing like what it was like. They're structured around sharing strategies, challenges, data. So data just being kind of like, did you use, did you not use, or drink rather. And they're less emotionally intense, like I was saying earlier about other groups. So their sharing is limited. So what boundaries, did you set this week around your drinking? What actually happened versus what you planned? What worked, what didn't, and why? And then goal reevaluation. So is moderation still the right goal for you?
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like a SMART goal.
Yeah, it does. Well, and there's smart recovery.
Yeah.
Is
that similar? Like SMART goals and SMART, is that the same acronyms?
They are the same acronyms, but I don't think smart recovery it's the same acronym for that. We'll look it up. I think it's actually in the deck.
Okay. We'll
look it up later. But one of the things that one of the controversies that I think we should being fully transparent around moderation management is that that the founder of moderation management ended up dying related to like alcohol related things. And I think it was like a car crash or something like that. They were drinking. That of course isn't to invalidate the model at all, but it's something that is kind of like talked about when we're like comparing these programs and things.
Interesting. Why is that significant?
Why is it significant?
Yeah.
Well, I think when people are like thinking about programs and the credibility behind those programs, if like the founder of a program who believed in this idea of moderation ended up dying because of their use, I think that matters.
You can say the same about any 12-step, right?
Well, no. I think that like the whole idea is like,
oh, hold on one second.
Okay,
Because in this case, we're talking about one particular person, which would be the founder. But I think it would be the same even if you learned about other people who were also using the program who also met a similar end.
Yeah.
Right. I think in this case, it seems significant to me because this is one person that we know of, and we don't know of the other people that this also may be true for.
yeah.
What were we going to say, Louis?
No, I was going to say, it's like, I'm like, okay, so I feel like, it is really like important for individuals who are stepping into this to really kind of be able to be honest about whether or not moderation works for them. Because if moderation doesn't work for you and you're still not accepting that and you're still trying to do moderation, then you put yourself in a situation. Like if you are someone who needs abstinence, but you are not able to acknowledge that, I think this is where it gets kind of iffy because for the people that it works for them. But if you have people who are still hanging on, people who still do harm reduction, people who still do certain way, thinking that it's like in our literature, it says we all want to drink like normal men, and maybe it's not possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, that maybe it's not possible is important, right? Because I think that's one of the ways that like moderation, like in some clinical spaces, moderation management is seen as a bridge, right? Rather than like it's during the, like that period. Wow, that went by quickly.
Wow.
But that, so it's like, it's, like in Dopamine Nation, for example, there's like this idea of doing the, you like do 30 days of abstinence.
You're
yeah. And you reassess, right? You go through this period, you do kind of a bit of a detox, and then you reassess whether or not this is something that works for you. So similarly with moderation management, if you're convinced, for example, that you're a normal drinker, well, then go out and drink normally, right? And if you're able to be honest with yourself and you see that it is working, then fine, continue. But if you're not able to moderate, then who's going to check you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that's the thing. It's like,
will you check yourself? You know, like,
right. Just like we all did to get into 12-step, right? I think we ought to check ourselves, right? At some point to say, I'm going to need to do this program.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's all trial and error, at least with this moderation thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, that's a good point, right? I think what you're seeing is like, how is that different from any other program and how we get into those programs? That's a fair point. And I think, what you're bringing up for me is like, I guess I am pretty biased. And I think, I wonder if my being biased, despite my best effort, is because I'm thinking about like extreme cases, right? Like I'm thinking about, for example, the people that we've known in the rooms that have died over the last few years. And it happens every fucking year. There's always, exactly. Right? So we see, we see people not come in, and then I've also have met people who are, quote unquote, constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And, I think about them like, is that someone who is able to quote unquote check themselves? And we're trying to, I guess maybe for me, it's like, I wonder if I'm like kind of floating around this, like a bigger question, which is like, well, what makes people come in and what makes people stop? And like, what are those turning points for people? And it's different for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think of it also too, is like, we know that addiction is a mental health issue, right? And similar to other mental health diseases that people have, right? Not everybody takes their ADHD meds. Not everybody takes their bipolar meds, and they take it in moderation, what works for them, right? So
meds?
Some people do.
Taking their meds in moderation?
Yes, trust and believe.
Well, we are not advising people to not take their medications as prescribed.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is, people try and find a balance, right? And I think it is just another way to try and find a balance for this mental health disease.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've noticed about you, Jordan, is that you don't like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't like things that operate in extremes. Like you advocate for that gray area.
100%.
Okay.
And do I live in that? No, but I advocate for it.
Don't get behind a wheel. But I respect that, and I really do appreciate it. And I think, I think I'm thinking about myself, and when it comes to addiction or like addictive behaviors, I have to operate in extremes. Like I know for me, like I cannot, and I hope I never get to a time in my life where I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I can, because I've tried it several times, right? Like it took this last relapse that I had years ago for me to realize like, oh no, this isn't an actual problem that I have, and it shows up in a bunch of other parts of my life.
To Jordan's point about this being a mental illness, do you think based on the programs, maybe the women for sobriety. Women for sobriety, but like the others, the way they all seem to be support group style meetings, that they even take into consideration that they may have a mental illness. Maybe they don't think of what they're going through as having a mental illness.
Well, it's interesting you said that, Jordan, and why you're asking that question, Louis, because it depends on how you're thinking about addiction. part of the reason why this is what I think happened with AA. Part of the reason why they brought in Dr. What was his name? Dr. Bob? Dr. Silkwood, right? I think part of that was legitimizing addiction, right? Because before AA, even during the time of AA, was seen as like a moral failing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so we needed to have that transition. There had to be some discourse that moved that away from being a moral failing to legitimizing it with with medical language. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, is this legitimate or was this like a rhetorical move? Either way, right? Like we should treat people who suffer from addiction well. And so saying it's a mental illness, for example, is using a medical model to think about addiction.
For sure.
And there are some people who may argue that it's not a mental health issue, that it's maybe it's a physical dependence issue, right? So I think there's so many different, and it could also be both, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So much.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah. We could probably continue this on for our next episode.
Yeah, we will.
Well, let's wrap this shit up.
The Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We promote programs and services that help change lives by supporting personal growth.
Yes, and our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community, opportunity, and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and check out new episodes every Monday when they are dropped.
We love you. Bye.